At first glance, this looks like a Coldplay concert. The stadium's sold out, the production is pristine, and thousands are on their feet, swaying to the music. But look closer and you'll see this isn't a concert. It's a megachurch, and it's one of the most financially lucrative organizations in the country. Welcome to the Capital Paradox. This economy's been running on cooked books, and we're here to conduct the audit. We track the laws, lobbyists, and loopholes engineered to favor profit over progress. Today, we're investigating megachurches, the tax-free empires outpacing small local parishes and running on exploited volunteer labor. Whether it's a CrossFit in Tulsa or a Chase in Manhattan, you pony up. Hell, even the mafia pays its taxes. After all, it's how they finally caught Al Capone. But if you turn that business into a megachurch, you get to live like a CEO while the IRS treats your empire like a monastery. Let's start with the Mormons, because if you want to understand how churches became tax shelters, they wrote the playbook.
Hello, my name is Elder Price, and I would like to share with you the most amazing book.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is one of the wealthiest religious organizations in the world, and for most of its history, nobody really knew just how wealthy. Until December 2019. That's when a senior portfolio manager named David Nielsen filed a whistleblower complaint with the IRS. In 2023, he sat down with 60 Minutes to reveal what was happening behind the curtain.
In order to hide $100 billion, you can't do it with just one lie. It's a lot.
Nielsen had spent years working inside Ensign Peak Advisors, which, on its face, was a church-affiliated nonprofit. But according to Nielsen's whistleblower complaint, this wasn't just some charity account. It was a clandestine hedge fund worth over $100 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the GDP of 120 different countries. It's more than the market cap of Starbucks, Nike, or General Motors. To hide a pile of cash that big, they built a labyrinth. They created 13 different shell companies, clones designed to look like independent investment firms, to keep the public and the government from seeing the full picture. And what were they doing with that war chest? They were playing the market. They invested in the greatest hits of the S&P 500. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Google. If you can find it in Silicon Valley, you could find it in their ministry portfolio. And because the IRS classified Ensign Peak as a religious organization, every dollar of profit was tax-free. If they had paid the standard capital gains tax rate over the last 20 years, they would have owed the US Treasury at least $15 billion. But Nielsen's complaint revealed more than just the church's shell game.
Money's going in and out of the cash accounts all the time. But Ensign Peak's funds were never used for any charitable purpose. As to my knowledge, the whole time I was there.
It showed how over the course of 22 years, Ensign Peak Advisors didn't distribute a single cent to charity. Legally, a nonprofit has to prove a charitable purchase to keep its tax status. You have to show the IRS you're helping people, not just hoarding gold like Smaug in The Hobbit. When all this came to light, the church simply said the money was being saved for future charitable purposes. For this decades-long deception, the SEC fined them $5 million, equaling 0.005% of the entire fund. And that's just one church, one fund, hidden under the shell company of Ensign Peak. Megachurches don't bother with the secrecy. They don't hide the wealth, they preach it. As long as they label their jets and mansions as ministry expenses, the IRS stays away. The Mormons built the blueprint. They showed every megachurch in America exactly how to play the game. But don't take my word for it. Let's hear from a senior financial officer at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who's here to make the business case for God as a shell company. So we've established that churches can operate as hedge funds, accumulate billions, and pay zero tax. On top of that, they expect you to tithe 10% of your personal earnings.
Business bad? Fuck you, pay me. Oh, you had a fire? Fuck you, pay me.
Do they at least pay it forward through meaningful charitable contributions? We'll use Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in Houston as our test case.
How many of you are ready to worship the Lord this morning?
According to their own reports from 2017, Lakewood operates on a budget of roughly $90 million a year. Of that massive fortune, only $1.2 million was allocated to missions and outreach. That's just over 1%. For comparison, Walmart gives roughly 2% of its pre-tax profit to charity. Now you might be asking, what about the others? The truth is, we don't know, and we likely never will. Unlike other tax-exempt nonprofits like the Red Cross, religious organizations in America do not have to file financial disclosures. They are financial black holes. In 2007, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee launched an inquiry into 6 major ministries regarding their lavish spending. Senator Chuck Grassley's office requested financial documentation for items like luxury vehicles and multi-million-dollar homes. Several pastors refused to comply. They provided incomplete responses or declined to cooperate entirely, citing concerns about religious freedom and government overreach. The investigations concluded in 2011 without any enforcement action. No legislation was passed, no penalties were issued. The Senate inquiry simply ended. So how much does this cost the American taxpayer? According to a 2012 study conducted by the University of Tampa, the total back then was $83 billion a year. Adjusted for inflation, today we are looking at a tax break of over $115 billion annually. That is enough money to cover the entire federal budget for SNAP benefits, commonly known as food stamps. Wealth is being hoarded by megachurches operating like private equity firms, while government shutdowns threaten the food security of millions of Americans. So if megachurches are operating as tax shelters, why doesn't the IRS do anything? Simple. They tried once, and they lost. In the 1970s and 80s, the IRS went to war with the Church of Scientology. They want to revoke their tax-exempt status because Scientology was starting to look less like a religion and more like a pyramid scheme with a navy. The IRS had the evidence, financial records, testimony from ex-members. They were building a bulletproof case. So Scientology fought back. In 1977, the FBI raided the offices of Scientology and uncovered Operation Snow White. To this day, it remains one of the largest infiltrations of the US government in history. Scientology had planted spies inside the IRS, the Department of Justice, and the DEA. Those spies stole documents, bugged offices, and purged local government files to erase their own criminal history. 11 top Scientology officials, including L. Ron Hubbard's wife, went to prison. But prison didn't stop them. In the 90s, they launched a new strategy, one that set the template for how modern billionaires silence their critics today: total lawfare. They launched over 2,400 lawsuits against the IRS. And in 1993, after years of harassment, the IRS surrendered. They granted Scientology full tax-exempt status for its 153 church-related entities. According to church leader David Miscavige, the IRS had claimed Scientology owed up to $1 billion in back taxes. The settlement, $12.5 million. That's 1.25% of what they allegedly owed. It wasn't about winning in court. It was about making the fight so expensive, so exhausting, and so personal that the government decided it was cheaper to lose. The IRS did used to have teeth. In the 70s, they stripped tax-exempt status from segregationist schools like Bob Jones University. They audited thousands of mail-order ministries a year, but after the Scientology war, they stopped. Since 2009, the number of churches audited for political activity has dropped to effectively zero. But Scientology isn't the only one keeping the IRS at bay. It's simple arithmetic. The religious right is one of the most powerful voting blocs in America. Roughly 25% of voters identify as white evangelical Christians. In swing states, they are the margin of victory. Politicians know this, so touching the church tax exemption isn't just unpopular, it's political suicide. If you suggest auditing megachurches, you're not just questioning the financial practices. You're attacking religious freedom. You're persecuting Christians. Politicians don't fight megachurches, they court them. Here is how the system protects itself. Churches mobilize the voters elect the politicians defund and intimidate the IRS refuses to audit the churches, and the churches keep raking in the cash while operating as tax shelters. Whenever someone tries to fix the tax code, the megachurch lobbyists don't defend their private jets. They point to the little guys. They hide behind the struggling community parish, daring the government to take down grandma's church just to get to them. They claim the system exists to protect the little guy. So let's see how that protection is working out on the ground. The median small church in America operates on roughly $90,000 a year. Nearly the entire budget goes to keeping the building open and paying a pastor. The median megachurch, defined as a congregation with 2,000 or more attendees, operates on approximately $5.3 million annually. These churches benefit from economies of scale, but also carry significant overhead, such as media production and campus maintenance. While megachurches often allocate between 1 and 5% of their budget to direct charitable giving, small churches allocate closer to 10%. In absolute dollars, a megachurch's giving outspends the small one. But when a neighbor's house burns down or a family can't pay rent, it's the little guy that typically steps in. In America, for every 2 churches that open their doors, 3 close them. That's a net loss of 1,500 congregations every year, most of them small community churches. 70% of community churches have fewer than 100 members. half of their pastors work second jobs to make ends meet. Meanwhile, megachurch attendance has grown fivefold since the 1990s. When a family leaves a small church for a megachurch, they take their tithe with them. It only takes a handful of families leaving before the small church can no longer afford to run its food pantry or help neighbors with their utility bills. Kenneth Copeland, a megachurch pastor, operates 3 private jets.
You said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did. We wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers.
Annual maintenance, fuel, and crew costs run at approximately $3 million. That's enough to cover the entire annual operating budget of 35 small churches. And while some pastors, like Copeland, live in luxury,
You may think that house is too big. I don't care what you think.
their success is built on the backs of exhausted volunteers. Across the country, megachurches have rebranded free labor as vocational training. Mars Hill Church in Seattle pioneered the modern megachurch growth strategy in the 2000s. According to former elder Kyle Furstenberg, employees lived in constant stress where success was to be attained regardless of human and moral cost. Paul Tripp, a recognized Christian author brought in to advise the church, later called it the most abusive, coercive ministry I've ever been involved with.
I'm sorry, I'll do better. Trust me. Let's just move on real quickly. How dare you! Who in the hell do you think you are?
The church closed its doors in 2014, but the model it pioneered lives on. The same pattern played out at Hillsong, New York City. Tiffany Perez paid $15,000 a year for what the church called practical training. In reality, that meant working 25 hours a week as a nanny for Pastor Josh Kimes. She was paid just $150 a week, about $6 an hour.
But could you pay me in advance?
You serious?
On top of that, she was expected to clean the pastor's house and care for his dog for free. According to Perez, Hillsong referred to this arrangement as honoring. Janice Legata, another longtime Hillsong volunteer, described it as a churn and burn system.
I think something is wrong here because this is not healthy for me.
An internal investigation later confirmed a culture of submission where volunteers felt they couldn't refuse leadership's demands. Whether in Seattle or New York, the pattern is the same. Young believers arrive with a dream, work until they collapse, and when they burn out, the church brings in the next busload. The current system allows these empires to accumulate wealth at a 0% tax rate, while exempting them from the financial disclosures required of every other charity in America. When the tax code was last adjusted, it wasn't to close these loopholes or protect the little country church. It was to secure permanent tax breaks for the highest earners. It turns out, in today's world, the fastest way to the American dream doesn't require a product or a service. You just have to build a business and call it a church. Thanks for watching The Capital Paradox, written by me, an anonymous auditor. Subscribe for our next episode, The Business Case for Dead Pedestrians. You bring the crossing flags, we'll bring the receipts.